was God's providence seen at work after the death of Ahaziah of Judah? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of 2 Chronicles on Walking Through the Bible.
Glory of His cross.
Today we're going to be discussing 2 Chronicles chapter 22, verses 1 to 12. Before we do that, let's read the passage. If you have a Bible with you, turn to 2 Chronicles chapter 22, verse 1. But if you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So 2 Chronicles chapter 22, beginning at verse 1. Then the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his place, for the raiders who came with the Arabians into the camp had killed all the older sons. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, reigned. Ahaziah was 42 years old when he became king, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Athaliah, the granddaughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother advised him to do wickedly. Therefore he did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to destruction. He also followed their advice and went with Jehoram the son of Ahab, king of Israel, to war against Hazael, king of Syria, at Ramoth-Gilead. And the Syrians wounded Joram. Then he returned to Jezreel to recover from the wounds which he received at Ramah when he fought against Hazael, king of Syria. And Azariah the son of Joram, king of Judah, went down to see Jehoram the son of Ahab in Jezreel because he was sick. His going to Joram was God's occasion for Ahaziah's downfall. For when he arrived, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. And it happened when Jehu was executing judgment on the house of Ahab, and found the princes of Judah and the sons of Ahaziah's brothers who served Ahaziah, that he killed them. Then he searched for Ahaziah, and they caught him, he was hiding in Samaria, and brought him to Jehu. When they killed him, they buried him, because they said, he is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So the house of Ahaziah had no one to assume power over the kingdom. Now when Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal heirs of the house of Judah. But Jehoshabeath, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being murdered, and put him and his nurse in a bedroom. So Jehoshabeath, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she did not kill him. And he was hidden with them in the house of God for 6 years, while Athaliah reigned over the land. We have now come to the death of the 5th king of Judah, Jehoram. Jehoram was the son of Jehoshaphat, but unlike his father, Jehoram was a wicked man. He followed the idolatry of his wife Athaliah and led Judah down the path of idolatry as well. For this the Lord punished both Jehoram and Judah for her sins. The peace that persisted during the reigns of Jehoshaphat? Gone. For the Lord allowed other nations to come in and plunder the land, killing most of the king's sons, save one, Ahaziah, the youngest. Even a lot of his wives were either killed or taken captive. Now, this doesn't mean that all of Jehoram's children died, for we read of a daughter later on in the chapter. And then, of course, Athaliah, Jehoram's wife, remained as well. But on the whole, the royal house was severely weakened by the actions of Jehoram, for not only did he personally kill his brothers, but during his reign almost all of his sons were killed too, meaning that very few heirs to the throne remained, at least in the direct line from David and Solomon. For Jehoram, though, his death was rather a gruesome one sent by God, an incurable intestinal disease that eventually caused his bowels to leave his body, resulting in his death. Now it is likely that over the latter part of this disease, which chapter 20 said lasted 2 years, that his youngest son Ahaziah co-reigned with him, which would account for the differences between 2 Kings 8:25 and 2 Kings 9:29, saying that Ahaziah came to the throne in either the 11th or 12th year of Jehoram, king of Israel. Both would be correct with a 1-year co-regency. Up on the screen now is our timeline, showing us that Ahaziah began his sole reign in the 12th and final year of Jehoram, king of Israel, which coincides with about 840 BC. Now you might think that after seeing your father die that gruesome death that he did for disobeying the Lord, that Ahaziah, who was 22 years old when he took the throne, not 42 years old, which is a later copyist error in the manuscripts, that he would decide to change and live righteously before God. But no, he followed the evil advice of his mother Athaliah to behave wickedly. He also took in advisors from the house of Ahab to be his counselors, and they advised him wickedly as well. In fact, some of their ill-fated advice was to assist Jehoram of Israel in his fight with Ahaziah, king of Syria, over Ramoth Gilead. Now Ahaziah doesn't appear to have gone to battle with Jehoram, but merely sent forces. But that he assisted Israel is what was important to note. Recall Ahab, Jehoram's father, had died fighting Syria over Ramoth Gilead, and now some 13 years later, Israel is still fighting Syria over this territory. Jehoram was injured during this battle, but not killed. However, something else was going on concurrently that would lead to the downfall of both Jehoram of Israel and Ahaziah of Judah. Back in 1 Kings, Ahab had behaved so wickedly in how he dealt with Naboth concerning a vineyard that Ahab wanted to purchase, that God had said that he would punish his house and give the throne of Israel to another. Well, Jehu, the son of Nimshi, was that other. And Jehoram's defeat by Syria was the opportunity used by God to raise up Jehu to bring judgment on the house of Ahab. But as we learn here, God was also going to use this as an opportunity to judge Ahaziah of Judah for his evil too. For when Ahaziah came to visit his ailing uncle, both of them would eventually end up being killed at the hands of Jehu. Even some of Ahaziah's relatives would end up being killed by Jehu as well, something we studied more in depth back in 2 Kings 10. What we have here in about 740-739 BC is an inflection point in Israel and Judah's history. For Israel, Jehu's execution of Joram marked the end of Israel's fourth dynasty that began with Omri and started the fifth dynasty, a dynasty that would be the longest in Israel's history, lasting about 90 years. For Judah, though, Jehu's execution of Ahaziah brought with it chaos and confusion, for because Ahaziah was so young, at 22 or 23 years old when he died, he didn't have many children, and even the children he had wouldn't be old enough to reign upon his death, leaving Judah in a power vacuum. Remember, Jehoram had killed his brothers, one of which could have been called upon to be regent until Ahaziah's children grew up. All of Jehoram's male children, save Ahaziah, were killed by invaders, thus depriving Judah of another set of people who could serve as regents. And then, of course, Jehu killed even more princes of Judah, decimating the house of David further. Thus the stage was set for the treachery of Athaliah, daughter of Ahab, mother of Ahaziah, and wife of Jehoram of Judah. Seeing what was going on in the north in the fall of her father's house, she likely decided to do what she did in order to preserve Ahab's house in Judah. The problem was she was not an heir to the throne. There weren't many direct heirs left through Solomon, but there were a few, including Joash. If Athaliah wanted to seize the throne and lay claim to it, she would have to kill all the remaining heirs. And had it not been for the providence of God working through Jehoshaphat, called Jehoshabeath here in 2 Chronicles, Athaliah might have been successful. But she wasn't, because Jehoshaphat, who was the sister, likely half-sister of Ahaziah and wife of Jehoiada the high priest, took Joash and hid him in the temple so that he wasn't killed. If you recall from our study in 1 Kings 6 verse 5, Solomon built chambers all around the temple. Even though we weren't told specifically, it is obvious that some of these chambers were used for bedrooms, and this is where Joash was hidden. Now you might ask, why didn't Athaliah search the temple for royal heirs, seeing as how the temple was right next to the palace? And the answer is, she didn't know what Jehoshaphat had done, nor did she suspect any of the priests of anything nefarious. Remember, the king didn't control the worship of the temple, the priests did. And the king didn't enter into the temple itself, only the priests did. So not suspecting anything and really not concerning herself too much with the priests of Jehovah, for Athaliah was an idolater, and not wanting to cause a stir by attacking the temple, for remember, there were worshippers of Jehovah in Judah, even if the temple worship ceased during her reign, it is not surprising that Athaliah didn't search the temple for Joash. For 6 years, Athaliah ruled over the land until Joash became old enough to be crowned king. That Joash was able to live so long in the temple while going undetected, though, shows us the providence of God at work. God had made a promise to David of his descendants sitting on his throne. The Messiah was to come from the kingly line of the house of David, and thus if God allowed Athaliah to kill all the heirs, that promise would be broken. So in raising up Jehoshaphat and Jehoiada to protect Joash from death, God worked through them in order to fulfill his promise to David. However, if the promise of God ultimately was to be fulfilled, Joash would actually have to become king and depose the pretender Athaliah. And so, the Lord willing, in the next lesson, we'll see how all of those events transpired in order to make Joash king. With that, our time is up for today. We will be taking a 6-day break and will return, the Lord willing, on Sunday, July 7th, 2024. When we return, we'll take up with 2 Chronicles chapter 23, verses 1 to 11. We hope that you'll come back and join us in that discussion when we will continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.